You're listening to the Fazcast, the Saracens fans podcast, bringing you the independent and unhinged views of the voices in our heads, as well as those of our special guests. To get in touch with us, find the Fazcast on social media and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube and more. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy this week's show.
You're listening to the Fazcast.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to Season 6. My word, how have we managed to get to Season 6 of the Fazcast? And we'll get a testimonial soon, I reckon. And joining me this morning is Duncan, Alex and Barry. Welcome back to the Fazcast. Did you all have a good summer? I mean, there wasn't a great deal of rugby and certainly bare minimum of controversy involving Saracens players, obviously.
Yeah, it's been a great summer. I'm still extending it. I'm still in France at the moment. I went to a rugby league game last night. Catalan Dragons getting thrashed by Wigan. And you have to admire the sort of the speed and the agility and the bravery and the violence of the game. But I was just dying for a reset scrum.
I think if you've watched a little bit of the Rugby World Cup, there's been a few of those, haven't there? And we'll talk about the Women's Rugby World Cup towards the end. Alex, how's your summer been? You've had a good time off from school, I assume. And did you get any results this summer?
Got cool maths results, and that was good.
You've all passed. You're all super intelligent, more qualified than the rest of us put together, I expect.
Yeah, got more. Most of mine will come next year, for A-levels. Went camping for a few days, which was nice.
Barry, you've not had any exams to pass or anything?
No, unless you count being in a stage show with lots of lines. That was a bit testing, but yeah, it's been a good summer. It's just a shame to see it over now. And as we head into winter, that's the only problem with the rugby season. It heralds the onset of cold weather.
It does indeed. I mean, my only exam I had to pass was the Naughty Boys driving course where I got done for speeding coming back from Kaiser Chiefs in Leeds. And that was on the morning of the third British Lions test. So it finished at 11:15. And I drove down into town, so I didn't miss the start of it and broke every speed limit going. So, I mean, that obviously worked, didn't it? Shall we start there with the British Lions? Because, I mean, yeah, we're going back some time. And for those of us are nearer our dotage, shall we say, and we'd probably, you talk about your acting, Barry, I think we could do a pretty good job on the Thursday Murder Club, which you watched last night, but as a bunch of old age pensioners. But can you remember back to the British Lions, in particular, the performance of Saracens players? I think we've obviously got to start, Duncan, with the skipper. He joins Willie John McBride, Finlay Calder, Sam Warburton and Martin Johnson as living British Lions series winning captains. Can't ask much fairer than that, can you?
I mean, as a captain, he was superb. You know, he's got a great manner about him. I think we mentioned it at the end of last season. He's great with referees. He's always in there on merit. And what more can you ask for from a captain? He was brilliant.
Indeed, and I think in the third test, Alex, I mean, when Murrow went off with his head concussion, things kind of fell apart a little bit. I mean, it didn't help that it looked like Finn Russell had been on the lash for the week, celebrating the series win, did it, Alex? But yeah, Murrow went off and we lost a bit of leadership in that game, didn't we?
Yeah, I think that was the issue, that they kind of had a couple of leaders, but they didn't have loads and loads. So actually, when you take certain people like Mara off the field, you really noticed it. Something
we'll go a bit further on a little bit later on is why a certain player was brought into the squad, Barry. But, I mean, there's a lot of people moaning that it wasn't a 3-0 series win. And I think Andy Farrell, if he was to go back and pick that team for the third test, he might have made a few different choices. Let the players who'd won the series have that one off and give other guys a chance, maybe, particularly younger guys, to blood them ready for the next Lions tour, which presumably a lot of them could potentially be on. Lions series wins are not easy things to achieve. Tick, got it sorted. And as has been proven, where everybody's been going on about how the Southern Hemisphere, the big boys, the New Zealanders and the South Africans would have beaten this British Lions team. Well, Australia have proven that with a decent coach and a bit of organisation, they are stepping in the right direction, aren't they, Barry?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's very good to see Australia back on the international stage and back competitive again. It does make you wonder slightly what they were doing with their selection in the first game. It was almost as if they were sort of accepting their fate on the first game, and it was strange. But yeah, I mean, great to see them back as a force. Sort of backs up your point about a certain Mr. Jones and how he affects sides that he coaches. And yeah, great to see them back. And I think people expecting us to just turn up and steamroll them 3-0 were being a little bit disrespectful stroke naive about the improvements in Australian rugby under Schmidt.
It was the best thing about the tour, because the talk beforehand was, why are the Lions going to Australia? Australia are rubbish. We should be going to Argentina. We should be going to France and have a decent tour. But actually, you could take a view that had Will Skelton and the other big guy, who you're surprised to know, whose name I can't remember, had they been available for the first game, had a couple of maybe 50-50 decisions gone a different way, Australia would have won the second test. I actually think the decisions went the right way, but they could have gone another way. And then we lost the last one. So it could have been 3-0 to Australia. But it is great, as Barry says, to see Australia back in the right direction, being a force in world rugby. And they went on to beat South Africa. So I think the Lions did them a favour all round.
Yeah, Will Skelton in particular, and Rob Valentini's the other guy you're thinking of, I think. And Nick White, who someone should have snouted at some point. I mean, he's a typical scrum half, isn't he, Alex? He's very gnarly, very narky, gets in everybody's face. But Will Skelton made a huge difference, and when you talk about, we never regret players leaving Saracens particularly much. Will Skelton, if you could have kept hold of Will Skelton, what a hell of a player, isn't he? I mean, he's just an immovable object and an absolute beast with it, Alex.
Yeah, and I think Australia definitely have those players, and now they're finally kind of starting to get them playing and kind of get the team element of it. That means they can be competitive against Lions. They can beat South Africa that they maybe didn't have before.
Before we move on and talk about the elephant in the room, shall we say, or the farrel in the room, shall we say, I want to talk about a couple of players, one in particular who had the fullback shirt nailed on, I think, until he broke his arm, being Elliot Daly. He had an absolutely amazing start. And he's another player where people say, well, why are you taking him? Why are you not taking Henry Slade? Why are you not taking Darcy Graham? Why are you not taking, all the... Elliot proves he's just a test match animal with huge amounts of experience, huge amounts of knowledge, but most importantly, huge amounts of time and ability, both in attack and defence.
Both international and obviously at Lions level, people keep writing him off, but the people who count, the coaches, keep picking him and they keep putting their trust in him. And I mean, we see it week in, week out at Saracens, but he is just a player who never, ever, ever lets you down. I reckon if they put him in the front row of the scrum, he'd give it his best.
Yeah, he would do. I mean, as you say, we often mention it, don't we, Duncan? 8 out of 10 players, consistent 8 out of 10 players. And Elliot Daly will give you a consistent 8 out of 10. And then occasionally he'll give you a 9 or a 10 and win player of the match and make the difference in any team he plays in.
It's a funny old thing, isn't it? Because being versatile used to be a curse. But Andy Farrell definitely had a policy that he wanted versatile players. But the thing about Elliot Daly, I like to see him at fullback, but there's no doubt about it. You stick him on the wing, you stick him at centre, you put him at fullback. And as you say, you normally get a world-class performance.
You do indeed. Now, one player who really perhaps didn't step up particularly much, and it's interesting actually, when I say he didn't step up, I think that's a bit unfair because he did get test appearances, but Ben Earl was kind of in a very, very competitive area of the pitch. He perhaps fell into that I can cover 6, 7, 8 and 12. And that perhaps affected his appearances on tour, Alex. Tad Byrne, for me, who was the player of the Lions player of the tournament, I thought he had an absolutely exceptional tournament all the way through. He was spectacularly good. Jack Morgan, we say wise Welshman on that tour. You put a really good Welshman in a good team and they'll look good because they're not carrying 14 other players, which he has been doing at Wales for the last season and a half. But yeah, Ben didn't really, I don't know whether he got the chances to really cover himself in that much glory. And I suppose the question then would be is, Tom Curry again had a fantastic performance. So that open side, is Ben going to, because he's been playing number 8. Tom Willis has been ripping up trees and surely must be the first choice number 8 for England before very long. And he's not a blindside. So, where do you see Ben after that tour?
Yeah, I think it's hard because he's competing with Tom Willis at club and country, which always makes things harder because if you can't get the appearances at your club, then it's much harder to impress your national team coaches. I think he'll definitely, be in the squad. And I think it just depends what kind of game that Borthwick wants to play. Where do you play players? Do you want players who are more dynamic? Do you want them who can kind of shift? Or do you want players who are just going to kind of do the kind of traditional role of their position? And that will kind of depend. But I think he's on the bench because he's a good bench player because he can cover, and that definitely sometimes hinders versatile players. If you can cover multiple positions, then coaches want you on the bench because they can then play around with who they've got. But it then hinders you getting into the starting 15.
You're right, though. I mean, it is a squad game, isn't it? And even when you look at the British Lions as a complete makeup, it isn't just a 23 you turn out on Test match day, Barry, is it? It's the whole squad that's there, and injuries happen, so they bring players in. Jamie George came in for Luke Cowan-Dickie. I mean, there's an argument to say that Luke Cowan-Dickie should never have been anywhere near the Lions. He hoisted himself on his own poor tackle technique petard, didn't he, and got himself hurt. Jamie George comes in, brilliant, to the manner born as ever, did well. The interesting one, of course, though, Barry, is, and I'll let you get the first comment in about Mr. Farrell after I've teed it. Owen coming in, to me, when Elliott got injured, it was a no-brainer. Apparently, Andy Farrell stepped out of the room, let the other coaches, he said, I want Owen, but if you say no, and it was Ian Evans who had the casting vote, and they were apparently unanimous in bringing Owen in. Owen came in immediately, went into the midweek team and got them organised, and absolutely, vindicated the decision to bring him on tour, Barry.
Welcome to season 6 of the Fazcast.
I was going to tee up by singing Mark Morrison, Return of the Faz, but my voice isn't good enough for that, I'm afraid.
Well, small mercies and everything. No, I mean, he's a player that is going to improve any side, organisation or team that he's around. Whether he plays or not, he is going to drive that group on. We know, because we've seen it ourselves, and we've spoken to former Saracens players. He just sets the standards and drives the performances, whether he's on the training pitch, whether he's actually playing starting at 10, or whether he's on the bench, or whether he's carrying the flipping bottles of water on. He adds something to any side that he's involved in. And I mean, again, as we keep saying, people who've forgotten far more about this game than we will ever know, keep picking him.
Does make my blood boil a little bit when reading this weekend that Jackie Lorenzetti, the owner of Racing, who just basically opens up a checkbook and thinks that guarantees him success, he's come out being really disrespectful to Owen Farrell and saying, he feels betrayed by him or anything like that. Well, he felt betrayed by Sire Khaleesi, the 2-time winning World Cup captain. I mean, you've got to look at yourself, Jackie, and think, what's the common denominator here? When you put Owen Farrell or you put any world-class player in a culture that is for success, that is for family, that is for development, and all of the things that we know that happens at Saracens, and all the things that we know that happens at other clubs where they are successful, Racing don't get it right at all, do they, Duncan? I don't know. You say you're in France at the moment. I mean, what's the viewpoint in France?
Well, I was saying to a bunch of people last night that I'm so excited about Owen Farrell coming back, and they were, are you really? But because clearly something badly wrong at Racing. But on the other hand, playing devil's advocate, if you're the guy who's bankrolling the club and you pay Owen probably €1 million, probably, he turns up, he plays about 25% of the game. Every time he plays a game, he has an amazing effect on the results, and the results go really well. And then he says, oh, actually, I want to be off. So you'd be a bit fed up with that. But as you say, 2 world-class players leaving a club like that is clearly something not right. But just picking up on what Barry said, it wasn't just ex-players. We spoke to Ollie Hartley last season, who said, well, the thing about Owen, he used to get us all together and tell us the tactics that we should use to break the other team down. In other words, he was that cliche that everybody uses, the coach on the pitch. And that's what I'm most excited about, having him back. I suspect it would be a role that was a bit like the fella that you're speaking to soon, Charlie Hodgson, was playing with him. He'll be a mentor to the other 2 fly halves. He might at times be playing alongside them. He's joining at the same time as a new attack coach, and we were We did our best not to complain about it last season, but we ended up really bemoaning the attacking side of the men's team last season. And I'm excited to see both Owen and a new attack coach, and hopefully looking forward to some exciting attacking play coming back.
Indeed, and Alex Good as well, stepping into a coaching role as well, a speciality coach, which is all good to see. I mean, it's keeping that. I think that's the thing of it, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, two things about Owen Farrell. There's no way Saracens really wanted for Owen to be anywhere other than Saracens. But when someone's waving a checkbook in their player's face, you're not going to stand in that player's way. You just hope that he remembers where he came from, Alex, which Owen clearly has. And, Owen clearly has worked out that perhaps the grass isn't greener on the other side, albeit a lot richer, maybe. But he's coming back somewhere where he is loved, respected. The second thing is, a lot of people turn around and saying, is it a wise move and everything? Well, I think it has to be a wise move, because the last thing you want is Owen Farrell to be unhappy in Paris, to come back to England and end up anywhere other than Saracens, given that he is, clearly going to be the next cab off the block when Mark McCall finally decides that he can hand over the club. And I think that's part of it, in so much as that not only will Owen be mentoring Louis and Fergus on the pitch, but Mark is going to be mentoring him and other players for the future.
Yeah, I think that's what you want for players to kind of go on into a coaching role and have that transition period where they're still at the club, they're still playing like Owen will, but actually he's taken more of a mentoring and coaching role. He's not playing so much, and you're letting the younger players go through. And I think players like Fergus Burke and Louis Johnson will really benefit from that, having someone experienced at the club, but still getting game time and still getting minutes. Whereas when you have the current England by half or a current international player, you don't necessarily get those minutes because they're playing and they're the first choice. So actually, I think it'll be really good for the club. And then, hopefully Owen will continue into coaching up Saracens.
At his age, he probably will take it easy. And it might be a season when he goes the whole season uninjured. Unlikely, isn't it? I think you're right. The other two will get game time.
Yeah, undoubtedly so. Now, just before we move off of the men's game, because, we managed to fit it in a lot, considering we haven't seen any men's rugby for quite some time. Well, I say we haven't. England went away to Argentina and America, had 3 really, really good results over there, which has been put into huge perspective by Argentina beating New Zealand. It shouldn't be a surprise. Argentina are World Cup semi-finalists. They're not a knockover. Everybody in New Zealand seems to think it's a disaster because they got beat over there. But I suppose if you look at the fact that England beat them twice, then New Zealand, if they have pretensions of being the world's best, should perhaps have won those games if England can. But there's some great performances from Saracens players, Tom Willis in particular. But the one player, Martin Gonzalez, doing Martin Gonzalez things against New Zealand, wasn't he, Barry?
Yeah, absolutely. What an incredible player he is. And we're so lucky to have him. And it's obviously some fortunate circumstances, the way that him and Lucio came to the club. But great players to have around. And let's hope we can get a full season out of him. Let's hope he stays injury-free and he could be a massive player for us next season.
He certainly could do, yeah. And I'm looking forward to talking about him and the rest of the Saracens men's players as we go through the season. Now, we'll have a break there, and we'll come back and we'll discuss some women's rugby.
You're listening to the Fazcast.
You are listening to the Fazcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracens Supporters Association, and I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the Stonex.
This is the Fazcast.
Well, welcome back to part 2 of the first episode of season 6 of the Fazcast. And joining me tonight is Barry, Alex, and Duncan. And Alex, thank you, because you have got it sorted. You sent your grandparents to Stonex, because I understand you were at England Samoa, which we'll talk about in a minute. But your grandparents went to see Saracens women play Bristol Bears women in the PWR Cup. On the face of it, exceptionally good result. 40-odd, 20-something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 45-28 or something like that.
Yeah.
But apparently, first half, not so good, despite the fact we had the wind in our favour. Second half, conceded right at the start, but then kind of kicked on and just pulled away from Bristol, which is really good considering it's our first game of the season and their second game. So they've had one, they've had an attempt, they've practiced, and we've come right out and managed to beat them, which is great.
The question is, who's in the coaching box? Because Alex Osterbury's working with Canada at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, there's been nothing on match reports, anything. That's kind of very much clearly omitted any names of coaching. So it'll be really interesting to see as the cup goes on who seems to be taking that role.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? And it's obviously Alex Osterbury's at Canada looking after some of our players, like Sophie de Goody, who had an absolute spectacular game on the weekend, didn't she, Alex?
I think all of our Canadian players are going really well. Got a couple of new signings from there. So it'll be interesting to see the role that he maybe had in that, in getting there, because he's been with them since Pack 4. But yeah, it just seems interesting that they haven't kind of said anything about it, and there's been no mention of it. So it'll be interesting to see what's really happening there.
And Duncan Taylor is now working at the academy. So he wasn't there as well. It's surprising when you see the graphic how many of the Saracens team are Canadian, and there's quite clearly a very, very close relationship there with Alex Osterbury, part of the coaching makeup, and I think we can expect to see more and more Canadian girls in our team.
It's an interesting point you make there, Duncan, because one thing that we have been very clear on over the last 3 or 4 seasons is that we've brought through lots of young British, but primarily English players who've gone on and represented their country and everything. Yet we haven't won anything particularly, we haven't won the big trophy for 2-3 seasons now. So is there a case of, well, we need to invest in some overseas talent because that's what we need to win the tournaments?
Yeah, I think it's partly that tends to be that one international player comes to the club and then they kind of tell all their friends and bring them over, and the players seem to like that. But I think definitely we're seeing that we need more international experience. Other teams are building up. Gloucester, half their team plays Wales, and Wales aren't having a particularly good time at the moment, but their players doing really well in the PWR. So I think we're kind of seeing that and going, we need to up the amount of internationals we have if we want to still be competitive. It's good having all these homegrown players and young talent, but if we're not winning anything, then that's not doing anything for them.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it goes back to the Jack Morgan comment I made in part 1, isn't it? That these Welsh players, if you put them in a good side, they look good. You put them in a poor side, they look poor. And I felt really sorry. Georgia Evans put herself about the park against Canada on the weekend and it got absolutely no joy for it. She must have sat there, got into the changing rooms, thrown her head in her hands and thought, what more could I have done?
She got smashed from pillar to post, didn't she? I didn't see the game against Scotland. They put up a valiant fight against Canada. It's been, with the exception of one match that I saw, which was the USA against Australia, it's been interesting that it's been so entertaining, even though there's been no jeopardy in the matches, has there? And it was great to see Australia versus the USA, which was a real nip and tuck game, were a very, very exciting right to the end. But yeah, Wales against Canada, like many of the games, was a mismatch.
It has been, and I'll talk about mismatches in a minute when we talk about England versus Samoa, but I think that happens in an awful lot of sports where you have group stages. It happens in football, it happens in cricket, it happens in rugby league, it'll happen in rugby union. You'll get each group, by right, should have 2 teams that are the teams that will go to the quarterfinals. And I think each group has. It's interesting now, USA and Australia sharing the spoils yesterday, as, USA have got Samoa next, haven't they? Australia have got England. There's a bit of peril there. And that's sort of like would be what you want. But I think that's fair. You got Canada, Scotland. They're the 2 best teams in that league. That they will go forward. I don't think it's as bad as everybody said it is with the mismatches at all. And I think actually, when you look at some of the results, although they may be very lopsided, I think that the skills and more than anything else, the determination. Look at Samoa, the determination from those women. One of them's a mother of four. One of them's had to take unpaid leave to go. She was told she hadn't got enough leave to go on it. And it's like, well, I'll just take it unpaid, And the fact that they've got here and put their bodies on the line against professional rugby players, I think actually for them to come out of it with that result was not bad at all, Alex.
Yeah, and I think you see Japan getting 19 points against New Zealand. And New Zealand weren't particularly great in that game. They conceded a penalty try. One of their players got red carded because it was their second yellow. Their discipline hasn't been great. So I think the results don't always show what's going on the pitch. And, South Africa beating Italy, which would be expected in the men's game, isn't in the women's, getting to their first quarterfinal. So I think you do have tight games, but sometimes between the second and third ranked teams in the pools, the first team expect to get through, they're going to get big results. And actually, you've got to look at the other games to see what's competitive, like USA versus Australia.
Yeah, I'd just like to underline, I'm not knocking it at all. I think it's been brilliant. What a performance to see that Australia-USA game sold out at York yesterday. And even when you've got the big differences, the spirit of the game has been brilliant. Samoa and Canada crowdfunding to get themselves there. You have to hand it to the players who've done that. It's been an absolutely brilliant tournament so far and a great performance even by the teams who have been heavily beaten, as you would expect to see.
Well, I think that's a really important thing. I bring you in here on Barry, and my first mention of my rugby playing career on season 6 in part 2 of the episode 1. But I remember playing in a game where we got beat 119-0. But I walked off that field knowing that I'd given absolutely everything, and I would probably turn around and say it's in one of the best performances I've ever had as a player, Barry. And I think if you looked at those Samoan girls yesterday in particular, every single one of them walks off that field having given everything they possibly could. They didn't leave anything to chance. They didn't leave anything on the paddock. Every little bit of them went into that game. And they made England work hard. It wasn't easy. You'd say, looking just at the scorebook, it was. But England had to go through some set moves and some training ground stuff and everything like that. They had to be accurate. It was a horrible day, I'm sure. I mean, it was wet. You could see it was wet. They made England be the best they possibly could be throughout that game. And, a lot of players who are, let's be honest about it, John Mitchell's, I hate to say B squad because they're not. A lot of them stepped up. Helena Rowland stepped up. Abby Burton stepped up. Fianati stepped up. Marley Packer stepped up. And with Zoe Aldcroft out injured and you don't know how serious that's going to be, that's really important, isn't it, Barry?
It must be a bit demoralising to think, we're only playing their B side and on walks Marley Packer, but it's great testament that I'm glad Duncan mentioned it. Obviously, Samoa, I didn't realise it was Canada as well, but Samoa definitely did crowdfund to get themselves there, and you would imagine that their preparation has probably been less than ideal, and they're facing the number one team in the world who haven't lost since Adam was wearing shorts, and in their own World Cup. And unfortunately, it's a big ask for them. But you're right, they did keep going to the end, and they had to. England had to solve one or two problems. I mean, they had a massive advantage at scrum time, although Samoa did kind of fix that a little bit when they changed their tight head. But yeah, England had to work hard for that, and it wasn't the one-sided blowout that it looks on paper. And just to mention on that, we do have to remember that happens in the men's World Cups as well. Was it New Zealand and was it Zimbabwe a few years ago, 105-0 or something ridiculous like that?
Well, last World Cup, New Zealand put a shed load on Italy, didn't they?
Yeah.
It happens. I mean, that's the nature of the game. Have England been too good in the first 2 games? Is this going to cause a problem for John Mitchell in managing expectation and managing confidence and managing where we go from here?
I don't think so. As in the teams, John Mitchell seems to have a plan, and I think he knows probably every team he's putting out, at least to the quarterfinals, maybe even to the finals. The squad seem very good at kind of grounding themselves and going, okay, we put 92 points on the team at the weekend, but we've got Australia next weekend. We need to keep going. And the good thing is they've got 2 very good 15s. So actually in training, they can play competitive, tight matches. And they're testing themselves in training and then they're going out and almost practice it on the weekend and practicing how to do the different tries. And it's good that we're seeing a variety of tries now, rather than just kind of the rolling maul tries we were seeing a few years ago. And it means it doesn't matter what type of team we come up against, no matter what their playing style, we've got something to face that.
Talking about different tries and not actually, relying on rolling mauls. The one player I really want to speak about, Duncan, is the Jess Express. Jess Breach notched up her 50th international try on the weekend. Considering she's had a bit of time out with injury recently, she's not had the best build up to this World Cup, having been out injured and only coming back towards the tail end of last season. She's hit the ground running. And when I say she's hit the ground running, I mean, she's like electric, isn't she? It's just phenomenal, the pace. And then when you put in Ellie Kildun and Abby Dow, I mean, that's a back three that would frighten some men's teams on pace and elusivity at quite a high level.
All three of them have got that quality I used to love watching in Chris Ashton, that you could almost see the wind resistance, when he set off. And all three of them are like that. And that combination of Eddie Kildun and Jess Breach, just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And Alex is absolutely right. It's been great to see the England back play. It's been really good to see. And they've got everything right now. You got Hannah Botterman, who clearly is the best women's prop in the world. And her try against the USA was phenomenal. They're looking really, really good. I mean, I hope they haven't peaked too early. I don't think they peaked too early. The thing that strikes me about watching England compared even Canada and New Zealand is the flatness of their passing.
Yeah.
You especially see some of the more amateur teams, and you'd expect to see it quite a big heave-ho by the girls to get a bit of a looping pass. England don't pass like that. It's like watching men passing, really flat, really fast. And I think that's just an indication of hopefully the higher skill level they've got over everybody else.
And also, I think it's where they receive the ball. I mean, Helena Rowland did it on the weekend. Zoe did it the weekend before. They're taking that ball on the gain line. And then you've got players like Tatiana Hurd, or who was played inside centre on the weekend, and Meg Jones. These girls are coming on at pace. You do not stop pace going into gaps. It don't matter who you are. If you've got someone coming at full pace off of a standoff who is standing flat, they're going through, they're busting that. They're at least turning the defence, if not making a complete bust and looking to put a partner in against a fullback. I mean, it's just beautiful to watch.
Also, pretty much any player is very dynamic. It doesn't matter if who you're sending through the defence. They're going to make an impact. And you also know that coming off the bench, the players are going to do the same. And everyone's at the same level. So it almost kind of doesn't matter who starts and who's on the bench, because whoever's coming off the bench is just as good, especially if you look at players like the front row. You can bring Claudia McDonald off the bench, place Jess Breach or Abby Dow, and she's still going to put that pace through.
Absolutely. Another player who's had her injury issues, and Abby Byrne as well. I mean, her story's quite amazing, isn't it, when you hear what she's been through over the last few years. Australia next up. What are you expecting the team to be from John Mitchell? Do you expect it to be, we'll go full throttle, or do you see a little bit of tinkering happening here or there or everywhere?
I suspect we'll see a little bit of tinkering, and we'll see a kind of hybrid side. There'll be players he's trying to manage through to the knockout stages, and obviously we don't know niggles and anything that they've picked up in training or whatever. But yeah, I suspect we'll see a hybrid side. He'll concentrate on winning that game first, I think, which is the right thing to do. But I don't think he'll go full beans on it. He'll try and manage his way through into the knockout stages, and then I think we'll see. I think we'll start to see his first choice 15 from then on.
And the other side of the coin, obviously, I mean, we're concentrated there on England, Duncan, but I mean, there are 4 other home nations involved. Ireland have had a good start to the tournament. Scotland have had a really good start to the tournament. And Wales have had a pretty shocking start to the tournament and already out of it. I did write down here, how do you get better? Well, you fund Samoa, you fund Fiji, and I did put down you fund Wales, but I think their problems go a lot deeper, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Fiji, because watching them the other day, it's sort of reminiscent of a few years ago in the men's game. You had some women there, quite clearly brilliant sevens players, and many of them almost unstoppable when they got the ball, but the whole game wasn't there. And if they get the funding, Fiji would be a major force in the women's game.
And of course, their next game is the wooden spoon of their group up against Wales. Where do you see that going, Alex? I mean, I really fear for Wales, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, and they've got the issue of Johan Cunningham, who used to coach Wales, now coaching Fiji. So obviously he knows the players in that squad very well. Yes, they will have improved somewhat since he left, but it's not been that long. So actually, how can he use that almost to his advantage and add the tactical knowledge that Fiji have maybe been missing in the past to their speed and athleticism, and they could be a real threat to Wales?
I think they will do. I mean, yeah, you mentioned it. The speed and athleticism could win it for them. What could lose it for them is a little bit of nous and a little bit of discipline. There was a couple of moments where the Fijian players really, I don't think they did it intentionally. I just think it was late on in the game, tiredness took over and they made some bad, wrong decisions. But also, the South Sea Islander tackle school, which is very upright, could have caused a few problems, Barry.
Yeah, I did actually feel watching it live they were perhaps a little bit unfortunate in some of the decisions were made. I mean, the one that sticks in my mind was the tackle around the throat, but I was clearly wrong because not only did it go to a yellow card and a review, it was upgraded to a red on review. So what the hell do I know? But yeah, I think Wales could be in for a long game next weekend.
I think we've done season 6, episode 1 proud there, haven't we, guys? I've only mentioned my playing career once, Duncan. So I mean,
I can cut that out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in which case, when I was playing that, and Alex, well done for sending your grandparents to report in. I mean, that's exceptional. As ever, the professional
They've got season tickets anyway, so.
Well, there you go. Well, if ever they want to be on as well with you, they're more than welcome to come on and join us. And indeed, thank you, Barry, for your input. We're back next week on the 10th of September, I think it is, and I will have been interviewing Charlie Hodgson. Charlie's agreed to come on and have a chat about his career and life now outside of rugby, and also obviously about his son who's made his debut for Saracens. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. It's almost sickening, isn't it? The way that you have all that ability and then you pass it on, it's just not on, is it really? But, there you go. But yeah, that'll be back next week. So tune in to us next Wednesday at 6 a.m. or whenever you pick up our podcast. But until then, I'll say thank you, everybody, for joining us. Duncan, Barry and Alex. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. This has been the Fazcast, episode 1 of season 6. And we'll say all the best and ta-ra.
This is the Fazcast.